before the theory can be discussed, there must be some other matters that must be attended to first, of course. Mainly understanding, or at least giving a brief explanation of the mathematical process of proving a theorem by induction. Proving something by induction, of course, is the process of proving some statement is true for a base case, and then that value holds for any value n, and for any value of n plus 1. Now, this may seem like a non sequitur to the topic of a conspiracy theory video. However, this process is absolutely necessary to prove my theory. If you treat it as though it is a mathematical proof, of course, there will be the base case, and then there will be the n plus 1 step, and then, of course, that will work in conjunction with the base case and prove the overall theory. If this sounds convoluted, it's because it is. But also, to maybe make this more clear, let me put this in other terms. See the base case sort of as a hungry man frozen Salisbury steak, and the n plus 1 step as the hungry man selects frozen fried chicken, of course. The Salisbury steak will fill you up, staunch the metaphorical bleeding that is your hunger, but it will in some way leave you wanting, namely that it is just a Salisbury steak. That's the nature of the Salisbury steak. There's enough there to feed potentially a hungry man, but if you want to be bursting at the seams, much like Spider-Man when he was killed by the Sandman, or maybe like a Thanksgiving turkey, you gotta go for the Select's fried chicken. There's enough food there to kill my grandmother, which, isn't saying much. She is quite frail, but the point still stands. The base case will hold, but it won't be quite as satisfying. It'll leave you wanting, but the n plus 1, that finishes you off, right? That fills you up, which is why that is there. And in summary, you consume your Salisbury steak first, your base case, and then you work on the fried chicken selects. Afterwards, your n plus 1, and those two together, that'll probably leave you vomiting in the trash can from too much food, but it will completely satisfy you. And that's really all you need, Now, you may wonder, what kind of theory do I have that requires me to prove it by induction? A mathematical process, something that's not really fit for a non-mathematical thing, right? What sort of asinine backwards theory requires something more than simply talking, sharing the idea? Well, it's really quite simple, but I can't say. And that may not make sense, but if I explained it now, I wouldn't need the proof by induction. And if I didn't need the proof by induction, I wouldn't need to explain why I didn't need the proof by induction. So, it reasons that in order to use the proof induction, I must first explain why I must use the proof by induction to create the impossibility of not needing the proof by induction, so that the certainty of needing the proof by induction arises. Right? And when you think about it that way, it really is quite clear on why the proof by induction is required. And yes, I am skipping out on typically what is the first step of any proof, which is to say what you're trying to prove at the beginning, but that's a nitpick, and eat my ass. Now, of course, you may worry that I am going to talk about aliens, lizard men, and a hollow earth. No. Well, maybe I will. Again, due to the aforementioned necessity of the proof by induction, I really can't explain much of what will to come, but I can speak of what there will not be to come. For example, I know there will be no talk of MLB statistics. I cannot, however, explain why there is going to be no talk of MLB statistics, since that would fall under the purview explaining the theory, which cannot be done without the use of induction. Now, that may seem like I may have just explained part of it, but I merely stated a fact of what would not be in there. There's no explanation as to why it was or was not in there. If this makes sense, I fear that you are almost as stupid as me, and if it doesn't make sense, that means that you're operating on a lesser plane of existence than I am. And before you ask, I have absolutely, unequivocally thought this entire thing through prior to writing any of the script, thinking any of the video, or even talking into a goddamn microphone. This is 100% pre-planned, without a shadow of a doubt. Now that the groundwork has been laid, the foundation's built, the plastic wrapping has been removed from the Salisbury steak plastic container, of course, I can begin to actually explain what the hell the theory is, or at least begin the first portion, get into the Salisbury steak, as it were, which is, of course, the base case if you were following along in part 1. Now, this, unlike an actual induction oven, will not heat the Hungry Man frozen dinner, but I digress. In order to prove this, we must first begin by letting there be a value A in the set of all possible scenarios that exist in video games that is equal to a zombified whale swimming around Boston, Massachusetts. I promise this will make sense as the proof progresses, and while not exactly zombified, I believe it is close enough to count. Within the video game Fallout 4, there exists a caravan worker who can be found on Bunker Hill. Occasionally this worker will tell tales of a great blue whale that has been ghoulified, or a close proximity to zombified. I'm not going to explain what that means, look it up, do your own research. This whale is known as Old Peg, which coincidentally is what I got called in high school due to my propensity to be getting pegged. Now, it is not possible to gaze upon the visage of Old Peg in-game, but you can deduce what Old Peg would look like. It would be an acceptable statement to make that ghoulification results in the ghoulie, or the thing being ghoulified, to become pale. The reasoning behind this is that there are no black ghouls. Seriously, I mean, play all the Fallout games. None of them are black. None of them, have any melanin in the skin. There are, of course, charred ghouls, but they would have gained their dark color through a far more scorching method than genealogy. Unless black people do not exist in the Fallout universe, which is false. I can think of at least one black person within the Fallout universe, and additionally that the point of divergence for the Fallout timeline for our own is in the 1950s, well after the first existence of black people in our timeline. It would be clear to say that the ghoulification process makes something pale regardless of her prior skin color. This means that the ghoulified whale, of course, would be large and pale. The size would come as a result of whales being large. I've personally actually never seen a whale, so I will take the Encyclopedia Britannica's word on this claim that the whale is large. If it comes out later on that a whale is actually in fact a small creature, take complaints up with them, not with me. Or, alternatively, it could be that the large type of whale the Encyclopedia Britannica was talking about was hunted to extinction by whalers in the North Pacific. However, as it stands for now, we will operate under the assumption a whale is large. Now, it would also be necessary to talk about the world that this whale inhabits, and this world that this whale inhabits is, of course, ruined due to a nuclear war. Again, I'm not going to explain the lore, do your own research, this isn't a Fallout lore video, I don't give a shit about Fallout lore, it's stupid. Another world, of course, that exists in a similar ruined state, where it's in a quasi-post-apocalyptic state, people are living and operating in a society, but not quite to the level it was prior, is, of course, the world of Evangelion. After, or maybe during, I don't know, I barely understood that show, the event that's called the Third Impact, the world was left in a fairly ruined state. large portions of humanity were still operating in a bizarre hive mind, and other people were just chilling on beaches, of course. One of the main characters chilling on a beach was one of the main characters, Shinji, who looked over the ocean, and in that ocean, much where a large whale may have resided, there was a massive detached head of one of the characters, Rei Ayanami, sitting in there. This head is superbly pale. I mean, it is clear that she has never seen the sun, which is bizarre considering that massive head presumably was in space not that long ago. And it is also, as I previously said, massive. It's huge. Unless, of course, the perspective of the shot is very bizarre. However, I doubt that to be the case because Shinji is in front of the head, and Shinji is well known to be of an average human size, and the head is far larger than Shinji. And of course, you may already be seeing where this is going, that there are similarities between Rei's severed head in the ocean and a large ghoulified whale that is known as Old Peg. This of course follows that I would posit that Old Peg and the massive detached head of Rei Ayanami in the end of Evangelion are the same thing. Both exist in a ruined world, both are large, and most importantly, both are pale. The large and pale, that is the key thing here. How many large pale objects exist in Evangelion? Not many. How many large pale things exist in Fallout? Not that many. There's not a lot of wiggle room here for what these two objects can be with each other, and additionally, the average Fallout occupant, the average person occupying the nuclear-torn remnants of Boston, Massachusetts, really is not going to have that much marine biology experience. How would they know exactly what a whale looked like? All they know is similar to what I know. A whale is large, and it is in the ocean. A giant head is large and in the ocean. Therefore, it is easy to determine that they would mistake a large head, of course, for a whale. And this is all, like, elementary. There's nothing complicated going on here. And it would follow, of course, that the world of both Evangelion and Fallout are one and the same, just at different points in the timeline. And thus, it would follow that the base case for the theory is complete. The values for n equals 0 have been satisfied, and this portion of the proof is now over. Now, of course, we have not reached the end of the theory, and as astute of you all are, I am sure of, you would know that because of the description I previously gave of what an induction proof entails. Now, it follows that we must now prove the case for n+1. This might become somewhat esoteric, and I, of course, mean by that only people who are dumb enough as me will understand really what I'm saying here, so this is not the place for eggheads. To begin with a theory, we must first establish our basis. And our base case was the existence of Old Peg, and then you must fabricate your claims using evidence, relying on one or two key pieces operating as the cornerstone of the argument. In this case, this would be the size and color of the whale, as well as Rei's head, as previously mentioned, being the linchpins that held everything together, and then from there you create one solid cohesive theorem out of it, of course being in this case that the world of Fallout and the world of Evangelion are the same as a result of the evidence of Rei's head and Old Peg being the same thing. And then you begin the construction of your final claim, which was the aforementioned solid theorem, are fairly similar. The difference there would be, of course, that the the world of Evangelion would be the more broader claim, and the more solid theorem is that the head and the whale are the same. And the general process follows that it relies on little basis to make an immense claim that is a little outlandish. And it follows that this holds for all values of n+1. Now, you may criticize me for my absolute bastardization of the n+1 portion of an induction proof, but I invite any mathematician who gets angry about that to square up. You're all book nerds who don't know how to lift anything, and additionally, I would invite you to prove an induction proof of a conspiracy theory. I will open it up to be any conspiracy theory, because you can't prove this one yet. You don't know what my theory is. I know what my theory is, but you don't. But I'll, an easy one, prove the Earth is flat by induction. I honestly, this is the best I think you can do for n+1. It's just to argue with what I've done here would be like arguing with a hungry man chicken pot pie. It's a fundamental cornerstone of any frozen meal, and you're trying to tell me it's wrong. It was a pioneer. How many frozen chicken pot pies reach the level that I'm operating at right now? Not many. And so it's somewhat disingenuous to try and argue with what I'm putting out here. But I digress. There is still much work to do before this can be done. Let's move on. Of course, since both the base case holds and the all values of the theorem for n+1 hold, it follows that the theorem holds. Now, as I previously mentioned, ignore the absolute travesty of an induction proof I just performed. And also there is the small minor error of not actually being able to tell you what just held. But now I can, which of course should be quite clear to you now, or at least the idea of what I'm trying to prove here should be quite clear. Well, that's the same thing. You may be wondering why did I just restate the same thing twice, because if you don't get it by now, I fear you never will. And it's that there are no conspiracy theories. They're all lies. Fake. There are no lizard men controlling the world. Old Peg is not Ray's head from Evangelion. What are you, insane? They're two separate worlds. Have you ever seen a lizard walking on 2 feet and talking like a human, trying to control your government and your politicians? It's absurd. Now, you may ask about some of the lesser conspiracy theories, things like a deep state, or maybe even minor things, like women's pockets being smaller in their jeans so that the purse industry can continue to exist. That's also a lie. It's all lies. I don't care what theory you bring to me. It's not real. I've never heard of any country that operates in a subterranean manner for their deep state. And it's absurd. They're all absurd. Every conspiracy theory, no matter how minor, is a lie. This theory that I have just willed into existence is so fresh, so clean, that you could have sworn it was cut by a razor. I don't even care if it was proven real later on. It's a lie. There's no exceptions. Don't try and convince me. Don't try and give your counter theory. They're all falsehood. They're just designed to make you look insane. The only realities are stuff that are in textbooks and encyclopedias. Well, actually, I did forget one thing. There is one theory that I do believe is true. And it is the only valid theory that is. And that's whatever the hell Ancient Aliens is trying to tell me. I've probably watched almost every episode of that show, and I swear to God, beyond, that there were aliens on Earth at one point, I cannot remember a single cohesive point it made. But my man Giorgio Tsoukalos, he's got one hell of a hairline and hairstyle. He could convince me of literally anything. I mean, he has convinced me of aliens being on Earth, and, I mean, I don't remember a single episode of that despite watching it regularly, and that may be due to the fact that I normally fall asleep about 10 minutes in, but he's convinced me nonetheless. But this is all to say that the theory is that there are no conspiracy theories. That's it. Name one conspiracy theory that's real, that has proof. It doesn't matter if it has proof. Even if it has proof, I don't care. It's not real. I just proved it's not real. You can go back through the video. It's not real. The proof is right here. The only theories that are real are mine and Giorgio Tsoukalos's. I graciously invite Giorgio Tsoukalos to hit me up and we can collab. But if he tries to push me a single goddamn thing outside of the purview of ancient aliens, I am actually going to call him a liar. But that's besides the point. The point, there are no conspiracy theories. And that, you can't argue with me about this, because I just proved I am, without a doubt, wrong. I mean, right. It's simple, really. This is all quite elementary and clear to understand once you've seen the proof and you've seen the evidence and you've seen the inductions, and it's all right here. I don't know what more to say, but if you look at how much left is in the video, you can tell I do have more to say, which means we should stop belaboring the point. Now, you have made it through the whole theory, and you may be somewhat disappointed in what I've had to say. Did this clown really just explain how he doesn't believe in any conspiracy theories despite making his own conspiracy theories simultaneously and extolling the virtues of the History Channel show Ancient Aliens? Yeah, I did. But more importantly, and I think the part that is more relevant, is that I just got you to listen to it. No matter how much of an absolute dingus I am, I didn't listen to someone explain how conspiracy theories aren't real. I didn't put effort into understanding what some half-witted moron on the internet was talking about, how conspiracy theories aren't real, how Giorgio Tsoukalos is one hell of a hair. Set of brains on him, set of balls too. I bet he's quite well endowed. I didn't do that. You did that. I essentially did nothing. But I'm sorry. Of course, I am sorry. I shouldn't be mean. You graciously paid attention to everything I said, and I'm certain you take what I said here today in utmost sincerity. You'll comprehend it, carry it on with you for the rest of your life, and you will spread what I've said here today, which of course is that there are no conspiracy theories. There's nothing else. It's all vapid nonsense. And even if you don't share anything, you still listened, and that is a greater gift than I could have hoped for. That you listened to this whole thing, and maybe I changed your mind just a little bit. Maybe now you don't believe that lizard men control the government, or maybe you don't believe that women's purses are smaller to help fund the purse industry. I don't know. I don't know what you believe. I don't know who you are. I know who I am. I know that what I said is correct. If you choose not to believe what I said, then you're wrong, and that's an objective statement. That's not a debatable point. But I am still grateful you listened. Well, actually, I do have one more tiny thing. Possibly this is more so of a confession than anything else. This video was never really about conspiracy theories. I don't really care about them. I think they can hold impact on wider people's lives, but they don't matter. Who cares? My theory doesn't matter. Your theory doesn't matter. No one's theory matters. Ancient aliens doesn't even matter. And I think the purpose of this video wasn't conspiracy theories. Now, that may lead you to think, well, what was it really? You know, you've been talking for so goddamn long. What is this really about? And I think at this point, much like the theory, it should be quite clear now. This isn't a hungry man chicken dinner. It isn't even a Salisbury steak. We're not even talking about this thing being a boneless pork rib, alright? This fucker isn't even a hungry man. It's a goddamn Stouffer's. That's what this video is. This is a fucking Stouffer's. It's a vapid waste of space. There is no substance here. Nothing of meaning. I've contradicted myself more times than I can count. None of this matters. None of this is real. The real point of this video isn't to impart to you information, to make you learn something new, to deliver my theorem, to talk once more about Hungry Man frozen dinners. Yes, this is not a paid promotion. I just really like their product. Please, I will accept a sponsorship though. The whole point of this video, the end goal, as you may be starting to grasp now, is that I didn't want to do anything with the conspiracy theory. There's no meaning. All I wanted to do was just ram a moon into another planet and force you to watch it happen.